Hey everybody, it's Jules from PH360 and we are so happy that you could be here with us. We have a very exciting person here to talk with us today about epigenetics, how our DNA is changing and what that means to you. And that is none other than our amazing founder and CEO, Mr. Matt Riemann.
Jules, thank you so much for having us here on this incredible conversation today. I want to thank everybody who's here live. There's a lot of people here on the call. I really appreciate all of you guys taking the time to show up for this call. And for those who are watching the replay live, I really appreciate your time here. So we're going to jump straight into it. Jules is going to have some great questions for me. We're going to have any interactive things as we go. So let's jump into it, Jules. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much.
All right. So first of all, there are people seriously from all over the world, Matt. So this is going to be really, really, really fun for you to be able to interact with people. And you guys, there's going to be open time for questions, which will let you guys ask the questions that you've been wondering about. And so, Matt, let's dive right in with, like out in the news right now, epigenetics is a huge push. I mean, like everybody's talking about epigenetics, and there's even some people saying that it literally changes our DNA. I mean, so I just wondered if you could talk to us about that.
Yeah, absolutely, Jules. Well, I think there's a lot of interesting conversations about all that. And the biggest thing that we're trying to understand at the moment is the concept of epigenetics and how it applies to our life. Epigenetics, for those who haven't quite got to what PH6 is all about, looks at all the things outside of our genes that can actually influence our genes and how they're activated at any point in time. And the main concepts, which is obviously inside of PH360, are the foods that we eat, and that can change the way our genes are switched on or off. It's the exercise that we do or that we don't do, which can change the way our genes are switched on or off. And all this is proven by science now. And it happens literally in the space of minutes. It's really incredible. We used to think it used to take hours and hours and years and decades to change our genetics, but it's actually very, very quickly that it changes. It's the environment or the climates that we live in. It's the social relationships and the interactions that we have and the stress that comes from that. In fact, stress is our number one killer and cause of disease across the world now. And it's really important to understand who we are, how we actually see the world, how we perceive different relationships, and I guess how we all think that everybody else is the same as us. And one of the big things that we're understanding is that not everybody's the same as us. Not everybody thinks like us. Not everybody eats like us. Not everybody moves like us. And when we can see that differently, we understand a lot of the relationships and the stress that's caused from that is usually from us not really understanding that someone's different to us, and they might have different thoughts or opinions and beliefs that cause us to often will cause us stress or distress in our lives, which equals stress or distress in our health. It's also the natural talents or genius that we have, what we do with our time, doing things that we love, that we're passionate about, that has purpose and meaning for us, makes a huge difference. But things that we're naturally talented at is really what we're all about. And it's our mind. It's the way that we actually go about the world, the way we see things, the way that we perceive things that happen in our life. So all these things influence our genetics, and these are the categories, if you like, that we refer to as the categories in epigenetics. And when we can successfully harness and understand all about these categories and how they apply to us, everybody in this call has a very different experience of life. And so these categories and what happens within these categories, everybody is very different. So it's about to navigate and understand how what's actually good for you and healthy for you in these different areas of your life, and how they influence your genes and how they're switched on or switched off at any point in time. Now, I'm not going to go into too much of the deep science here because I know we've got some more science calls, Jules, but just very, very briefly, we talk about epigenetics in many different sort of layers or contexts. And if we look at things from a big point of view, epigenetics that influences the planet, for example, things like the moon. The moon has this incredible electromagnetic pull that influences the tide. Most of our world is actually made up of the ocean, and it has this huge influence. And this is a very, very strong field that influences all of our humanity, all of our heart, all of our wiring. We often don't see it and have ignored it, but now science is showing how much that actually influences us and who we are at any given moment in time. If we look at stuff from a very microscopic level with epigenetics, we're looking at the different things outside of our very cells. Very, very basically, for those we're talking epigenetics, here's epigenetics 101 in a very quick nutshell in less than a minute. We have a protein that's here, and you have your DNA. It's wrapped around this protein. It's called a histone. You have these that are together. There's two histones. It's called chromatin. They kind of sit here like this. This is in each of your cells, and you've got your genes that sit here. And so if there's these marks, these messages that tell this structure to move apart, and the cell can go down and read the gene. Or if these messages or these epigenetic marks tell the cell to tell the chromatin structure to close, then it won't be able to read that gene or express that gene. And so that's really is these messages or epigenetic marks that sit around these structures either tell this to happen and the gene is expressed or switched on, or it tells this to happen and the gene is not switched on and not expressed. And that's really, I guess, the basis of epigenetics. It's these little marks or little messages that tell a gene to be switched on and off. And so we understand now which things and which messages will be relayed to cause a gene to be expressed or not expressed. And that's the things we refer to as well in the everyday life and sense. And that's exactly what we talk about with the foods, the exercise, the environments, our relationships, our natural talents, and our mind. These are the things that actually cause these messages to say, oh, switch that gene on, or actually switch that gene off. And that's really the concept of epigenetics. So it's not so much about the fact that our genes change. Our genes are our genes. But it's more about actually changing, understanding that we can change the way our genes are expressed. So we all have a whole heap of different genes. In fact, there's 20,000 to 25,000 genes that we have in our body, and in every single cell. And so it's actually which ones do we want to actually express at any moment in time, because we have a lot that we don't use in any given moment. And so that's really the concept of epigenetics, Jules, and that's what really PH360 is built on. Is rather than saying there's this crazy big thing outside of the world and how does that factor us, there's this crazy stuff in the cells, how do we understand this? It's actually saying what's tangible, what can we actually use from epigenetics to control our current situation and how we can act and how we can best exist in this world from a place of health and happiness.
Yeah. Wow. That was great, Matt. And that really shared with people, like, I was going to ask you, what are the top 5 things we could do to impact our epigenetics? I think you just shared it, right? You said food, exercise, and talents and who you're around and that sort of thing. But I wanted to go back to something you said earlier. You had said that stress is like one of the top killers, literally killers of people in the world. I mean, it's all over. I mean, the happiest places where there's the least stress have the highest rates of longevity versus the places that have more stress in their lives. And there's some things that we can see as stress, and then there's some things we can't really see as stress. Like sometimes they're hidden stressors. And so I'd love you to just share a little bit about some of the hidden stressors, things that we might not even realize are creating stress within our cells, which increases all kinds of things we don't want to have happen in our bodies.
Yeah, for sure. Great question, Jules. And I think to answer that question, it's really important to understand that there's a few different types of stress. And so the different types of stress that exist, we refer to as physiological stress, so stress that's on our body. And this can be the environment or the climate that we're in. And an example that some of you guys might have heard me use, because it's a very easy example to sort of comprehend, is if we're all here, like all of us on this call right now, we jump on a plane and we go to Africa. And we get off and there's this really hot weather and we're out there dancing, and we get off and we're like, hey, everybody, it's great to be on the safari, and we sip our fresh juice or have a glass of water and away we go. That's our experience right then. If we all jumped on this plane to go to Antarctica, we'd often like, oh, we're freezing cold. Let's just get in our bus and get to the hotel and get a warm bowl of soup. And that's just to highlight the difference of the environment and the climate that has on us. In one aspect, there's a lot of stress that can happen. In another aspect, there's a lot of stress that can happen depending on who you are. And I'll give you an example of that. For starters, when we jump off in Africa, we all want to eat different foods. We wanted a fresh juice or a water. When we jumped off in Antarctica, we want a warm bowl of soup. Our bodies need different foods and different things in different climates. And that's it. We're the same people. We're the same genes. We have the same genes. We're probably wearing the same jeans because we just jumped on the plane. We have the same genes, the same lifestyle, the same environment. We do the same amount of exercise. We think the same. We've got the same partners. Like everything about us is the same. The only thing that changed is the climate. And so that has a huge impact on the foods that we eat, on the foods that our body wants, on the way we are socially, which means that we will, again, we jump off in Africa. Hey, everybody, we just met all these great new people and we're out having fun. We're all more extrovert, even if we're naturally more introvert. And then if we go into Antarctica, we're all more naturally introvert, even if we are more extrovert usually. We're like, oh, it's cold. Just get me in the bus, get me to my hotel. I just want to go there and warm up. And so the climate or our environment impacts us in a huge way. And the stress on that is actually different for everybody. There's some people that actually naturally love a warm climate and their bodies need and thrive in a warmer climate. I'm one of those people. I love the humidity and I love being in a warmer climate. And so if I'm in a warmer climate, I feel, oh, this is so excellent. I'm so at home. I can be out there and this is just, it makes me feel incredible. It makes my body work really well. In fact, this is one of the things that For those who familiar with my story, this is one of the very first things I did when I was diagnosed with a terminal illness, is that I moved from the lower part in Australia, where it's more cold and dry, up to a northern part in Australia, up the Gold Coast, or Sunshine Coast, where it's more humid up there and warmer weather. And that instantly made me feel better a lot in terms of my pain and symptoms that I had, just by changing climate. It was incredible. It was a really good understanding for me to see the true power of what we call geomedicine these days, how location can actually influence your state of health or your stress. And so a warmer climate is really great for some people. For some of us that are on this plane right now, if we get off there, that'll be a stressful situation for us. And we might be there going, oh, this is so hot. I'm sweating, I'm dripping, like I can't wait to get me in the air conditioning. For me personally, I'm like, get me out of the air conditioning. I want to get in the warm weather. Other people are like, oh my gosh, it's so hot. I just need to get in the air conditioning, because their body is very different to my body. And so everybody's body is very different. And it's important to understand that about ourselves. And that's what pH360 can help us navigate, to say which climates or environments are naturally suited to our body. Again, for me to be in that warmer environment in Africa, I'm thriving. My body's healthy. My cells are functioning, having a great time. For someone else, it's very stressful. It's very hard on their body. They're producing a lot of sweat because they're so hot. They're trying to produce sweat so that we can have cooling down of the body. It's a stressful cycle, and their body's constantly going through stress the whole time that they're in that environment, to try and help reduce back to a state of equilibrium and state of normality. And so again, it's stressful for some people. It's extremely beneficial for some people just in that same environment on this plane. We jump off in Antarctica. Now that's really stressful for some people. That's stressful for my body. My body will be constantly freezing cold. I'm probably shivering. I'm trying to think. My mind will be off track. I'll be all sorts of states of mind, trying to think, how can I get warm? I'll start to shut down lots of processes. So all my blood flow will go more internal for my organs that are more important. And I'm going to be in that space where I won't be thinking as clearly. I won't be doing much. I'll just be focused on trying to get warm. For someone else, like, oh, this is so perfect. I'm here in this cool environment. I hate it when it's hot. It's so nice to be cool. I feel refreshed. My cells can relax. Like, this is really healthy for me. And so it goes to say, like, it's not just a general concept. We understand that a hot climate or a cold climate can impact us. As a general plane, we all will be different in that environment, but individually in each environment, we're all very different in that individual environment. And so it's really important to understand how that can actually influence our state of health physiologically. And there's a lot of stress that actually comes from that space and that place. And so I just wanted to highlight the physical side of stress, physiologically on our bodies, and then the actual stress that's more of a psychological stress or an emotional stress.
Matt, before you go on, I had a question.
Yeah,
a really quick question. Okay, so you're talking about environment, and this is a really, like, every once in a while there's somebody who says, oh, my pH360 says that a desert would be really great for me, but I love humidity. And so can you address how that could happen? And is that a situation where that could be creating some underlying stress that someone might not even know about?
Yeah, great question, Jules. Well, often we're not aware of what we're not aware of. We don't know what we don't know. And so the whole premise of pH360 is to help you understand what you don't know. You don't have to be a genius. You don't have to be a geneticist or a neuroscientist or a dietitian to be able to understand anything about navigating your health right now. That's why we created pH360, so that you can actually have the information. Now, the interesting thing about that is that sometimes that will be different to what we think. Sometimes it will be different to what we do. Sometimes it will be different to what we actually even believe. And the real power of pH360 is to give you something that's best for you right now. And again, because it's based on your epigenetics and things are changing all the time, and we're changing people, all the information in pH360 changes regularly as you change. And so what pH360 will give you is the best thing that's right for your body at this moment in time, and that'll change with you as you change. And so an example that you gave there, Jules, even if we think that we prefer humid environments, we might like that. And often we might like that because we might have gone to a place for a family holiday each year or every second year or something like that when we were growing up, and it was humid. And so we had really great memories attached to that. We had really great feelings. Whenever we're in a humid environment, it made me remember that I was there and that was really great, and that might be the reason why. However, at the time in our bodies that pH360 identifies, it might identify an imbalance of certain chemicals or certain minerals or deficiencies in certain any of the dysfunctions it might be. It might be in an organ, might be in a nutritional process, but it'll identify what the actual issue is that's there, and it will give a solution to be able to help counteract that back into equilibrium. So it'll say, great, well, at the moment, if you're in a desert environment where it was hot and dry, that would actually kill some sort of, maybe it's a parasite process, maybe it's an infection that's going on, maybe it's something else that pH 60 identifies in that body. And I would say this desert environment would be the best possible environment for you to have. And it'll even tell you the time of year to go there. And this is based on the concept or the science that we call chronobiology, that says actually your cells are going to respond best to that hot and dry climate to be healthy, to be healed, if you put it under that state of, I guess intervention is probably the best word, of what you might need to be able to get the result that you need to get to. And again, this is something that we often say, if we're, maybe we're in a state of ill health, maybe we are carrying some extra weight, maybe we're not sleeping well, maybe we're not doing what we're doing. The reason why we're at pH 360 is to say, hey, well, here's what you need to do, or here's what you can choose to do to be healthy and happy. And so if you're in a state of not being healthy and happy and you have advice, you could choose to say, oh, I disagree with that because it's not what I like. Or you could say, oh, well, actually, obviously what I like is what I've been doing, and I'm in that same situation right now. So I'd love to be open to choosing and trialing it. Even though I wouldn't think this would be the right thing, let me trial it and see, because my body may know better than what I think at this point in time. And that's really what pH 360 is, like translating what your body is saying to you. It's like this interpreting tool. Maybe we should sort of message it like that to people, because it literally is just understanding what your body's trying to say to you, put it into words that you can interpret and understand, and there it is in front of you. So your body, in that example you gave, Jules, is crying out to say, hey, I need a dry, hot climate right now. Please get it to me. I need to kill this infection that's going on in my body. I need to get rid of the humidity and actually have the dryness that's there. I need these things. Please give them to me. And we might be saying, no, I don't really like the dry, hot climate so much. No, I'm not going to do that. So that's where the power of pH 360 comes in, to say, hey, like, listen to your body more than what you might think at this point in time, because it can really help you. And we work with people in the medical capacity all day, every day, about helping people understand that concept of geomedicine that can really be so healing for people, which is very different to what most people think about.
Yeah, and Chrissy in Palo Alto, she asked a question. She said, if I'm there's really two questions here. I can hear two questions. One is, if I'm changing all of the time, so does this change? And she's asking, what if I don't have the ability to move to another location? Then how do you change your environment, or like what sorts of things can you do that would actually create that difference for you? Like, pick one of those and maybe just share what you're thinking about that. I mean, how important is this, basically?
Yeah, it's very important, actually. And the environment and climate is a really important thing. So we have control over this all the time, Chris. It's a great question. And I guess to really answer that, think about where you spend most of your time. The reality is that almost none of us spend all our time outdoors. And most of us spend our time indoors, whether we're sleeping. There's not many people that actually sleep outside under the stars these days. We're sleeping indoors. We spend 8 hours, or hopefully close to 6 to 8 hours in our bed at nights. We get up, we pot around the home indoors to have our breakfast and get our morning. We usually then jump in a car or on a bus or something to drive to work, again in an indoor environment. Then we spend our time at work in an indoor environment, or if you work from home, it's still indoor environment. And then we jump on that bus or jump in that car in an indoor environment to drive back to another indoor environment, and then spend our night there watching TV and having dinner and doing what we're passionate about. So most of our lives, unfortunately, is indoors. And for that, it's really important to understand that we're empowered to change our indoor environment very, very easily. And so what we're looking to do is to replicate as much of the outdoor environment in the indoor environments that you're in. An example that we used before might be if you're better off in some warm, humid climates or versus some cold, dry climates or whatever. You can adjust your air conditioning or your heater at home. You can have a humidifier or a dehumidifier at home. You can choose to be, if you're in a place where the air conditioning's on at work, you can choose to say, cool, I know I need warmth, so I'm going to take a scarf to work, or I'm just going to take a beanie or a hat to work. I'm going to wear an extra jacket. I'm not going to sit under the air conditioning vent that's there. In my car, I get to choose what climate it might be at that particular point in time. So we always have a choice as to what environment we have in an indoor capacity, and again, how much sunlight we have, or what sort of lamps we have. Each of us can go and buy different globes that are very inexpensive these days. You can get an OTT lamp which goes through a full spectrum light, different frequencies of the sunlight, as opposed to just our neon lights or other lights that are just more of the lights that don't work so well for us a lot of the time. So we can change our lights, we can change the sun, we can have the curtains up rather than down. We can be changing our environments a lot. So that's I guess the answer to that, is that we're always empowered to change any parts, even though we might think, I should be in a warmer environment. We'll create a warmer environment where you are, even if you don't have external heating. Wear more clothes, be in that space. And if it's the opposite, do the opposite. So that's just some ways to navigate through that, Chrissy. And it's a really great question. So please keep the questions coming, guys. There's going to be lots of things. Just the last part of that as well, Chrissy, was if we're changing all the time for the environmental side of things isn't a thing that changes every 2 minutes, because generally speaking, we're people who are kind of set in the same space or in the one space. What this refers to is that if you are living in Antarctica and you should be living in Africa, and you're sick and you're unhealthy and you're unwell, then maybe you want to consider something like that. And again, we work with people medically where we'll encourage people to actually move countries. And people do in 20 to 30 years of arthritis and other diseases literally just go away in the space of a week without changing diet and exercise or anything like that at all. It's just literally a climate thing will change something significantly. And so it's really important to understand that if you are in a state of ill health, you're not happy, you're not sleeping, you have fatigue and stress and all these other things that are going on, look at your climate that you're in. And if PH360 suggests that you should be in the complete opposite climate to what you're in, maybe just try and book a holiday there if you can. Maybe try and recreate the environment that you've got in home indoors to replicate that as much as possible, even if it's for a week, and to see how you feel. It'll make a big difference for you. I can certainly assure you of that.
Yeah, I really noticed that too. All right, awesome. So you had talked about that there are 3 different levels of stress. So we went through one, the physiology, and what was the next one?
So we're going to go through, I guess the next one to consider here is more of the psychological side of stress. This is where our mind actually comes into play a lot about what we actually see as stressful and not stressful. I touched on this a little bit earlier in the call where we talked about relationships, and this is where we may perceive things differently to someone else. And this is kind of the essence of most of our psychological trauma that we have in day-to-day life, is that we think that everybody's the same as us. We think everybody acts the same as us, thinks the same as us, and should behave the same as us. And that's where we kind of leave our expectations. In fact, we say, if Matt's someone who works really efficiently and really quickly, and then someone comes on board to be an assistant to Matt, for example, then Matt would say, cool, if I've got stuff I want to hand over, then I expect someone to do that really quickly. That for me would be an unrealistic expectation, unless I wanted to have a clone of me or try and find someone who fits that role and works the same as me. That someone here might do a fantastic job, but they're someone who's more loving and caring and nurturing and all these people, these great qualities, but means they don't work quite as fast. And so if I expected them to do 5,000 tasks in a day and they got through 4,980 tasks, that might have me leaving them feeling disappointed, like, oh, well, I employed this person to do 5,000 tasks. That's what I would expect of them. How come they're not doing it? Suddenly, over time, I end up angry at them or frustrated at them, even though I might think they're a lovely person. This starts to become this disparity in what I expect and what I'm actually seeing show up in my life. And that's where I start to feel the difference and the gap starts to divide. This is obviously just an example, by the way. And it may be the other way around. The person who's that assistant might see this as, oh, this is going to be a great job. I love it. And they're so nurturing and caring and loving that they're not naturally used to going 1,000 miles an hour for that. But they say, hey, I want to make sure this can work, and here's where we're at, and this is going to be fantastic. And they try, and they start at this job, and it's so cool and so exciting. And then over time, they get stressed, and it's hard, and I'm trying to do 5,000 things. I'm working so hard, and I'm not sleeping, and I'm just working so much. And I'm getting here, I'm just doing it to try and impress and to be nice and to be helpful and everything. But this job isn't what I thought it was. It's so stressful. And then suddenly it's like I'm expected to do this and it's not done. And this is a state of stress. And suddenly we have this incredible relationship that started. This is just in a work scenario with your boss or with whoever you're working with. And suddenly we have this person who's here who loved what they were doing and came on for all the right reasons, that's suddenly stressed and overworked and overwhelmed. This person who here was employed for all the right reasons and suddenly is upset or intolerant or angry or frustrated at what's happening. And this is kind of the essence of our life, whether it's work life or relationships at home, our parents, our kids, our husbands, wives. This is often where we sort of run down. We have expectations that everybody should be like us. And so that's where we often fall down. And so this is where the psychological stress comes in. It's very stressful for us. This person's angry and frustrated and intolerant every day, and this person's feeling, whatever they're feeling down through here, overwhelmed and stressful and everything else that's there. And this is just based on our expectations in our mind. So relationships, the underpinning essence of that is really about expectations. Underneath that comes more stuff, which is, I guess, is the third thing on more of your beliefs and things like that in your mind that actually come into play that causes that sort of stress in the first place. And this is where we talk a lot about in the mind section about how you naturally think or what you naturally act like. So you can actually start to harness that and understand more about who you are and how you think, so you can go, oh, okay, well, if I was in that situation and Matt's here employing an assistant in that capacity, I go, okay, I understand how I think and how I operate and who I am. I understand that I would have expectations like that. Okay, well, if I'm employing someone, I need to be really realistic in what the expectations are. I can't employ someone and expect them to do the same thing. If I'm going to employ someone, I'd employ them to say, great, well, I want them to be in a capacity where they're sharing love and nurturing and using their natural genius and their natural talents, where they can always be happy and enjoy coming to, to work and doing their thing, versus me saying, I'm expecting you to do this, this, and this, and then they start to get overwhelmed and stressed. So you're always going to have someone, when they're functioning in their natural, healthy state, is going to be the best version of themselves, and not going to be someone who we're expecting them to be who's not. And that comes down to a lot of the beliefs that we have, and it might be something underneath that believes that this person is loving and nurturing and caring, and believes they're here to take care of someone and to nurture someone, and they'll do what it takes to make sure that happens. And that can end up being really stressful if they believed more about the fact that I understand who I am and what I'm here to do, understand I'm here to live my life in my natural talents, to be really healthy, to be really happy. And if that so fits this job role, then great. And if it doesn't, then that's great. I'll find something else that comes along. And so when we can be ourselves and be in our natural healthy state, then we can be right there and say, great, this is what makes me healthy. This is what makes me happy. This is what happens actually in my life. And this is where we all end up in a great space. And we might think that we wanted that job, or this person, Matt, in this example, might think that that's the best person for the job. But if this person's not going to be, over time, they're going to be overwhelmed and stressed, then this person isn't satisfied because they don't get the result anyway. This person isn't satisfied because they're unhappy and stressed. And so we actually end up in a state of dysfunction with both people. So the answer and the summary for that is, with the mind, is know yourself, know what you think, know what you believe, and be yourself in that space, because then you can be truly who you are. This person can be truly who they are. And then if it's a good match, then you guys can share that journey together, whether it's husband and wife or boss or employee, whatever relationship is, and you can share that journey and be incredible. But if this person's trying to put their expectations here and this person's trying to live up to these expectations, it's always going to end up in a dysfunction. So that's some I guess, a brief version of the ways that we experience stress, whether it's a mental, whether it's a psychological, emotional, or whether it's a physiological stress. All of these things go towards a state of stress in our bodies, which can end up in either health or disease. And I was just recently talking with a friend about a concept that we're talking about, battered mind syndrome. And this is often a huge thing, that a lot of the stress that we do experience is psychological stress. And it comes from us judging ourselves. Other people, allowing other people to judge us. And we really want to encourage people to look in the mind section to find out who you are and connect with who you are, what you're naturally good at, and really spend your time in that space, because that's really the key to health and happiness that's there. And that's what we really want to encourage you guys all listening on this call, anyone that's listening in anything that we're doing, is really just find out what's right for you to be healthy and happy. And that's what PH360 is all about, is to help you understand what is right for you to be healthy and happy. So you don't have to worry about someone else's thoughts or opinions or their journey. That's their journey. That's not your journey. That's theirs. And so if they want to put their judgments or fear or doubt or thoughts over here, you can just be who you are in your space and say, you know what, maybe that's not the right relationship for me right at this point in time. Or maybe I can communicate with them to help them understand more who I am and what's important for me, and they can communicate who they are and what's important for them, so we can actually communicate and reach down and be on the same page with each other. We can be different people, but we just need to understand that we're different people. And if we can just really encourage everybody to be in that space and to really connect with who they are, it means you can be healthy and happy for you on your journey, and everyone else around you can be healthy and happy on their journey, and you guys can share an incredible journey together. And that's what this is all about.
Yeah, that has been one of the greatest gifts, I think, for when I hear people talking about having been to a course or having been to a retreat, that they are sharing what they learned about other people in relationship to just being able to see that. And tomorrow we are going to have Diana Anderson is going to be on, and we're going to be talking about relationships. I mean, this very thing that you're talking about right now, we're going to go into more depth about it, so that we'll be able to understand more about the people around us. And how it actually turns out is, like, for instance, you learn about it when you're in the course, but when you're in a retreat, you're actually experiencing it, because we're like completely immersed with all these different kinds of people, that you start out, this person's this way, this person's this way, and like all of our little mind things going. But by the end of the time, once you really understand who people are, it's like you can feel a palpable sense of love and ease in the body. And I think, wow, that's one of the greatest gifts that happens in that situation, Matt. And maybe you can just talk a tiny bit about how that happens. How does that actually happen physiologically when they started out as these certain people and they're ending up as the same people, but how that transformation occurs from the time they come to the time that they leave?
Okay, cool. Are you talking about more on retreats, Jules? That's
Well, I'm just saying, well, it's a place that we see it happening. So I'm not necessarily about retreats, but just how that can occur, like, but just by learning about one another, just by like really, it's like going from like having that irk the heck out of me when that person like, says those things, or the way they are, their energy bothers me. I don't like how sharp their energy is, or wow, they're too slow, or whatever. They learn about the people. And then through that process of actually learning that that's what's natural for them, it gives them access to actually relaxing and not thinking so much about it. I mean, can you talk about that
absolutely.
for a minute?
Well, it's I guess it's a really powerful way. And again, this is what you get to experience on a retreat is like an immersion into you. And it's really, we often get caught up in the fact that we think we're here to please other people, or we're being judged by other people, or we're living in this space of fear about things, or about doubt about who we are and what we're doing. Is it right? And we feel like other people are making us feel like we're not important, or not worthy, or we're not significant, and that can cause us misery or sadness and upset. And this might be a role of a husband or wife, or a boss, or whatever else that's playing all these things that would make us feel like it. And it's really important when we get to a conversation or a time where we can be immersed in ourselves, that we actually take the noise away, and we can be there and go, oh, okay, well, let's take that noise away. Let me just reconnect with who I am. Let me just find out who I actually am. Okay, cool. Now I can just have this space. I can feel again. I don't have this constant input around me for anything like that's there. I can just be myself. I can learn about myself. I can connect with myself, and I can then understand who I truly am and what I'm here to do in the world. That's actually kind of the essence of any retreats that we do. And when we're in that space, we can say, you know what? I'm actually an incredible person. And everybody, this is not my words, this is what everybody who on a retreat comes and says. And I'm sure there's probably a number of people on this call that can attest to this. It's like, wow, I got to experience who I was truly and deeply. I get to realize who I am and why I'm here. And I'm actually a beautiful, and I'm a loving, and I'm a caring person. I'm not this person who's made out to be wrong all the time, or this person who's insignificant. I'm a beautiful person at my heart. And I'm here to share so much with the world. And now I really believe that. And you know what? I used to actually give my power over to other people, whichever role they played. It might be a boss, might be a husband or wife, might be a son or a parent or something like that. I used to actually give my power over to them, and I used to actually blame them for me being unhappy or me being miserable. It's like, oh, my husband talks to me like this, or my wife talks to me like this, and makes me feel like I'm wrong all the time, or makes me feel like I can't do anything right. Whatever I say is never good enough, or whatever I do, there's always a better way to do it, or whatever it might be. And we usually blame someone else, whether it's our boss or whether it's our relationship, whatever it might be. We blame them to say, oh, they're always telling me I'm wrong. They always make me feel terrible. Whenever I have these chats, I'm just in this space, and I feel like I'm just insignificant, and I'm not worthy. And that's where we end up in our lives. And at the retreat, when we take all that away, we can go, wow, by me blaming them, I'm saying they're responsible for me and how I feel. And I've given them the responsibility, and I've handed over the responsibility, saying, you're the one who's responsible for how I feel. Which what I did was then just give the power away to them, because I said that you're right and I'm wrong. I've gone and said that by just blaming them. I've said you must be right and I must be wrong if I'm blaming you, because it's your fault, which means you're the one who's making me feel bad. So hence I've blamed you, hence I've given my power to you. And so we're here trying to make someone else feel like they're responsible. Again, the boss or the relationship, whatever it might be, husband, wife, they're the ones who are making us feel like this. Yet actually, we're the ones who gave them the power to do that. So when we're in this space here, we're kind of going, hang on, this isn't right. We're giving them, we're trying to say it's their fault, when we're actually the ones who gave the power over to these people in the first place. So actually, we should be here saying, this is my fault. I'm actually responsible. Well, there's no faults, but I'm responsible actually for this. Like, I'm the one who gave my power over. I'm the one who did this. I'm the one who actually thought it was you who made me feel bad, but it's actually me who gave my power away, which made me feel bad. So actually, I'm here coming from a place saying, I'm really sorry. Will you forgive me for blaming you and for putting it over here? Actually, it was me who decided to give my power away because of what I believe and because of how I'm feeling in life. I gave my power away. then I blamed you. I'm sorry for blaming you for the circumstances. It's actually me. Because when we get rid of all the noise and the fluff, we realize it's actually just us. We realize this whole point of this journey in this life is about us and who we are and what we're here to do. And PH360 can help you understand who you are and where you are on your journey. In a retreat, you get to be immersed in that. And so it's just an incredible experience to be able to be you and to listen to you and connect with you, to be there and to understand that everything in your life that actually shows up is you. You've actually chosen to do that. Whether you choose to give your power away is you choosing to blame someone else. No one else is responsible for you. You get to choose everything. You get to choose how you think. You get to choose how you act. You get to choose what foods go in your mouth and how much exercise you do or don't do. You get to choose who you hang out with, and you get to choose everything. That's the beauty of PH60. It's such an empowering tool. It's such an empowering way to understand what's good for you and who you are, because everything in your life is about you. This is your life. It's your reality. You get to choose all of that. And so the retreat or any of those sorts of experiences with us is really about saying, let's connect back to who you are. Let's find out who you are. Let's help you rediscover who you are and relearn who you are. Let's give you all your power back and take all your power back so that you're suddenly free again. You have all the freedom to be who you are, to do what you're here to do in the world without feeling like you're being judged, or without feeling like fear, without feeling like there's any of these things that aren't keeping you free. It's like, wow, I'm actually empowered and I'm free to do what I like to do. And it just changes everything, because you realize that a person who you thought was being, not so nice to you, or you thought was making life difficult, is actually just expressing the best way that they know how, that they love you and they're trying to care for you or trying to help you or whatever. You just perceive that as that they're telling you wrong and all those sorts of things. So it changes everything and transforms your life. Literally, your relationships are different. Even though the person's the same when you go back home, they're a completely different person, and everything else around you is completely different, because you're a completely different person and you're the one who creates your life in reality. And so
Right.
it really is an incredible experience. I really encourage all of you guys, if you haven't had a chance to get on a retreat, come. Or if you can't come to a retreat for any reason, try and create that space yourself at home. Like, really try and get into that space. Give yourself some time away. If you feel like there's stressful stimulus, whether it's a partner or whether it's a circumstance, whether it's work, take a holiday or get some quiet time. Go into create a sanctuary in a part of your house and just spend some time there. Whatever it is that you need to do, just get some space from the noise and the clutter that confuses us, and just get back to yourself and reconnect with yourself and say, well, who am I? It's a great place to do it on a retreat or anything like that. But if you can't get to one of those things, like, just create that space yourself and really think, hey, like, actually, where does this come from? Is this me? Do I have a choice here? And the answer is always yes. So I always encourage you guys to please choose what you want to choose, choose what you want to think, choose how you want to feel, and choose for that to show up in your life, because you always have a choice.
Yeah, there is always a choice. In fact, it's fun because someone was mentioning in the chat, they said, oh, I'm living in this toxic house and I can't really help it. And, it really boils down to, just what you were saying. I mean, you can be the victim of your circumstances, or you can choose, and either powerfully choose that toxic house or powerfully choose to not be in that toxic house. It's like up to you.
Right. And the beauty about that is, and we won't go into too many tangents here, Jules, but the beauty about that is that for whoever wrote that, even if you're in a toxic house at the moment, to understand that toxic house is the way that you perceive that house. And again, what we just shared before about being at an immersion for a retreat is you get to literally reconnect with who you are, and you have your mind more focused on that. And then you can look at people around, and instead of thinking of it toxic and it's influencing me in a bad way, you might come out with some compassion and go, wow, like, I'm actually in control here. I can choose to either talk to that person or just not talk to them at all. I can choose to lead with happy, fun conversations instead of the negative stuff that usually comes my way. I can choose to have space, or I can choose to say, you know what, I want to move here, guys. I'm going to do this at this time of day, and I really would love to have that communication with you to see if you're okay with that, and then set that up, and that you can have your time of day to use a certain space or place or whatever else. You can choose all these sorts of things. So when you're in that empowered place, you can say, you know what, I get to choose to change this toxic house into a house that's very manageable. Any of the negative stuff that's being said, I'll just choose not to listen to. It's nothing to do with me. That's cool. I'll either put my headphones on or be in my space. And when I choose the conversations, if I hear negativity, I'm just, we'll choose to say, you know what, I've made this incredible decision. Maybe like people stop, when the people stop drinking for a month or whatever, maybe I'm going to stop toxicity for a month. And you know what? And you can share it with the people in the house and say, I just had this awesome call. I had this awesome thought. I'm going to do like a positive detox for like the next month. And so anytime in conversation, you'll probably hear me for next month, change this into, I'm so excited about, and then insert comments here, or I love life because of this. And just so you know, guys, the next month I'm going to be talking like that in every conversation we have. And that gives you a really great way. If someone else is whinging about something or saying negative things that you perceive as toxic, you can just choose to change that conversation straight away and go, you know what? Oh, I love that you shared that. Someone might say, I had the worst day, my boss sucks, and whatever else you can say. I love that you shared that. And that makes me feel really grateful for where I'm at, because I have a boss that's really great, or I work for myself, and I'm really grateful for that. And I'm so good, and I'm so happy about that. And I'm really, really excited. And yeah, what do you guys want to do for dinner? Because I would love to have dinner. And you can just change the whole energy of the place if you choose to change energy. So there's a whole heap of different things you could do to change a toxic house or environment into a house that you want it to be. It's always up to you. And all you need to do is just make a decision and say, I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to communicate that with other people in my house, and I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And it's kind of as simple as that. There's, obviously layers on that we build in, but I think this talk was about DNA and epigenetics, so I probably should go off my tangents anyway.
No, I think it was good. And for anybody who's excited about learning more about this, tomorrow we're going to be learning more about biotrends with Diana and how they're different than us and how to interrelate with them, and just how we can really create our relationships as being something that's super positive for us in all areas, even people that we think right now that we don't like. And so it's going to be really fun, Nat. And we're going to be talking exactly about what we're talking about. And everything that we're sharing tomorrow comes from our courses, the courses that we do, coach courses, and the personal foundation experience. So yes, so that's really exciting, Matt. So, okay, so you talked about physiology, psychology, and what was the third one?
It was more to do with the mind. It was more to do with, and the mind itself, this is a real big tangent, so I won't go there too much, but the mind itself is more about something that resides a little bit outside of our physical presence, if you like. So we have our brain, we talk about that in PH 360 with neurotransmitters and things like that. And then we have our mind, which is more the interpretation of our senses and things like that. So it's the reason why we can have, someone drops an iPhone in a glass of water and someone's like, oh no, I'm upset, I'm sad, maybe I'm angry, that was, I'm frustrated and whatever. And someone else is like, yes, I'm happy because I don't like Apple. It depends on what you believe. It's your response to any situation will be based on what's in your mind and what you believe. So again, the same event, an iPhone and a glass of water, someone ends up with anger and frustration, which then turns into really bad chemicals that's produced in the body, which turns into stress and states of disease. Someone else is happy and fun and having a great time in life from the same event that happened. It was just the perception of the event that caused this person to be happy, caused this person to be stressful and unhappy, this person to be happy and having fun over here. So,
right. But this is like in real life, Matt. I mean, you're talking about something excessive like dropping an iPhone. Okay. So we could say like, oh, of course I wasn't happy about that, or maybe, but I mean, people have that same reaction to if somebody reaches into the refrigerator and pulls something out and starts to drink it. And they're like thinking whatever they're thinking about that, right? I mean, silly little things all day long that are just like triggering.
It's the principles of that. And that's where our mind, that's the power of our mind there, is just understanding that how we react to any circumstance is actually based on what's in our mind and how we believe it. It's not necessarily what's in our physiology so much. So that's the power of the mind. Happens in all day. Someone grabbed something out of the fridge, someone pulled in front of me on the freeway in the car when I was waiting in the line for 10 minutes because there was some traffic jam, and some guy pulled fast down the lane and came in front of me, and I got angry and frustrated about that. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. It's always just our perceptions. Again, I used an example with, I think when we were talking with Jen McLean, actually, you have someone pulling in front of you in the car, you could be like angry and frustrated. But if you actually had a different perception and you thought that person was on their way to see their sick mother who was about to die in hospital, would you react the same way? Of course not. You'd be like, oh, quick, get in, like push in front of the next 10 cars. I'd be very happy to let you in. So my response, if again, my perception, if this is someone who has a sick mother, then of course I'm very happy for you to come in. If this is someone who, I shouldn't have to wait in traffic and you should have to wait as long as I should, so you deserve to sit back as long as I do, they pull in, I get angry and frustrated. So it just, whatever we just decide to believe in our mind actually dictates what happens to our response and our biochemistry and our health or disease. So it's a very, very powerful understanding, is that, the perception of the world and everything that happens, which again, whether we can change a perception of a toxic house or environment into a house that's full of love and happiness, that's there because it actually comes from us as opposed to the external that's there. We actually decide what shows up in our life.
Yeah, and who we be in that situation. Yeah,
absolutely.
I really, really, really get that. And it's funny how much PH 360 has actually helped me to see like who I'm being and how much that's transformed over the last 3 years, as you know. So it's like loving the connector.
It's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And owning it, Jules, because you are incredible. Like everyone on this call at some way, shape or form has experienced Jules. I know whether it's been an email, whether it's been probably a phone conversation, a retreat, some sort of experience with Jules. Everybody's experienced you, whether it's a YouTube video they've seen of you or whatever. Like, and you, when you're owning you, Jules, like, or anyway, you're just an incredible person who's just shining, and all you do is just share love and energy. That's all. Like, you can't not do that. So that's just naturally who you are. And PH360 tells you all that, and you go, oh, that's me. So if I was trying to be someone else, it's like, oh, I should be someone who's just happy and fun and sharing love and energy all the time. It's like, okay, cool. That's kind of cool. And that's who you are. And that's how everybody knows you. And it's just incredible. So a big round of applause everyone on the call for Jules being Jules.
Yeah, you guys would love this. We had so many arguments about this when I first started. I was like, there is no way that I'm that foofy. I thought it was some kind of foofy thing, but it's really not. So at any rate, it's great to know that. And you guys will learn more about that tomorrow with Diana. Hey, okay, so Matt, I know that we don't have you on the calls a lot. And so I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. There's one question that's on the line that there's a couple of people have asked questions about, like things that you absolutely don't have control over in your environment. So for instance, chemtrails or, toxins in the air, toxins in the water, I know we could get water purifiers and things like that if they wanted to, but like, how do we address, as our world has taken on all this toxicity in general, like, can we literally see it one way and change it? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, great questions. This will be a long webinar if we go into all the depths, but I'll give you a bit of an overview briefly. And there's a couple of important concepts here. The first concept is that the understanding epigenetics means that there's always a constant rebalancing happening in our bodies, always. We can say, hey, it'll be great to get 8 hours of sleep and then we'll be healthy. But sometimes you might have small children, or you might be in an environment where you just can't sleep so much, and then you don't get that sleep. So then there has to be something that counteracts that in the rest of your life. So maybe there's different foods that you'll have that help the fact that your brain didn't get the nourishment, or the mind didn't get the nourishment overnight with the sleep. And so that you can get fed differently with your food that comes in. Maybe you are in a circumstance where it's the opposite and you can't eat what you want to eat because of financial situations or whatever else it might be. And you can rebalance in terms of positive relationships in your life, or what you're doing with your time and hobbies and interests and all those sorts of things that you're doing. So there's all these things, like these epigenetics are always balancing and rebalancing from time to time. Not everybody gets exact sleep and exact foods and all that sort of stuff all the time. It's life. Life happens. So sometimes you're going to be in a stressful situation in a relationship, no matter who you are and how you think, and it will show up. And that might be a time when you rebalance things here. You might be in that situation. You might get angry at this person because they stole the stuff out of the fridge. And so you might go, cool, well, I can go and exercise. Again, this PH60 gives you insights. I can go and exercise and actually get rid of that energy out of my body, and I feel better. That's great. So I just counteracted that. Whereas if I didn't experience this, I might not have needed as much exercise to expel that energy that was there. It's looking, PH60 looks at a lot of different layers, as you probably gather, not just the hardcore physical side of things. It incorporates the mind and other things into it as well. So it's really an emotional intelligence, a mental and a physical user manual for your body is what it really is. And so when you're in those situations, it's really important to understand that you can navigate through anything at all that you like to. But that's the concept is understanding that that's what PH360 actually is. It shows you all about that.
So I have a question about that. Okay.
Please.
So like one person could be exposed to Fukushima. I'm using something really, really, big. Okay. One person's exposed to Fukushima and they basically die. And then another person is exposed and they're fine. Or you could use cigarette smoke. You could use whatever. I mean, you could use all these toxic things that happen in our world. What is from your perspective, what is that? Like, what is going on with that person that their body took in that same, every day we get mold, every day we get, little candida things float around in us. Every day there's parasites. I mean, there's all kinds of things in our environment that can happen in our bodies. And, why does one body take it on and one body doesn't?
Yeah. Well,
was that too big?
No, that's perfect, Jules. These are conversations I love. So I guess, again, there's a number of different answers and prongs to that conversation. There's not just one answer to give that, but let me delve into a few of these other concepts. So first, everybody responds differently to everything. That's why can be someone who can drink and smoke and live till over 100 years old, and someone who's 30 years old dies of breast cancer when they do yoga and meditate every day and eat healthy fruits and vegetables. That's, how basically that's the question you're asking. Like, how can this work for some people and not work for other people? How can someone be exposed to radiation and die? How can someone be exposed to radiation and live? How can someone have smoke and drink and all the stuff that's bad for you and they live and this person dies? It's like, how does it work? Well, the answer is we're all different. There's over 7 billion people on the planet. Everyone's completely different. Identical twins are so different, even if they've got the same genetics. It depends on which genes are switched on or off as to what happens. And again, it's fascinating, the studies even with identical twins, ones that are actually together, they grow up and they're a lot more similar, even though there's differences, but those that grow up apart are very different people. And so this is, again, explaining the environment and lifestyle. Those twins who are close together and grow up in the same environment, they have the same parents, they have the same input, and beliefs from their parents, instilled in them. They eat the same food and meals, they have the same climate they grow up in. They have all the same things. They have, the same stuff they do with their time. They have the same relationships. Like these people who grow up together, of course, they're going to be a lot more similar because they have very similar epigenetics as well as genetics. The people who grow up separately, these guys have a very different environment, very different climate, very different relationships, very different things they do with their time, very different stuff they're doing over here, different exercise, the whole works. And that's why they're so different. That's why you can see such a big difference in twins that don't grow up together versus those that do. It's the environment and lifestyle that shows a difference. And so we all have different response in our stimulus that comes in, which is either through food or through chemicals. We take a lot of stuff in through what we see, what we hear, what we feel, what we actually have come through our skin, what we ingest. All these things, we have different responses. The fact is some people are gluten intolerant. A lot of people are not gluten intolerant, but they don't like gluten because gluten's what we hear in the world. It's the worst thing in the world and no one should eat gluten because we're all going to die from it. It's the fact that some people need that, some people don't. We should all be vegetarian because vegetarians live longer and have a better life. Well, that's not true. Some people need meat and other people don't. And, it's one of those things that if you're in a space where you're unhealthy, and it's the opposite way around too. Some people are like, I just eat meat. They should be vegetarian because the meat's, causing some of their body's harm. But it's not something that's for life. It's something that's just at that point in time. And then something will change and something will change, something will change. So it's understanding how does the environmental stuff influence our genes or switch on or off certain genes. But it's not about the genes itself. It's not about saying we're influenced and we had a genetic mutation. It's about saying, well, if we have, how do we actually change that, or how do we express that or not express that? And that's understanding that and navigating through. So if you've been exposed to a circumstance that's not great in your life, like if you have had a really bad, stressful encounter, unfortunately, there's people in their lives who had a really terrible traumatic experience with their mind that's there. There's hope for you. You can change that. You can actually change what's in your mind and you can have a really healthy relationships and other things in the future. If you've been exposed to something where it's been toxicity, like a physical or physiological toxicity, like radiation or other things like that, there's things you can do to change that and to detoxify from that. The fact is our cells are being replaced all the time in our body. The death grow. It happens all the time. And this happens very, very quickly. The stomach within a day, we have a full blood cycle within 3 months. Like all our blood dies and regrows in about 3 months. It's crazy. Like we don't have this blood illness that's there and we think it's our blood for life. It's not true at all. We have the ability to change. We do change all the time. Our bodies are naturally built to adapt to stress. Like stress is naturally unhealthy. We cut ourselves, here, our body sends down the good guys, it starts to scab up and it heals over. Like our bodies are designed to heal themselves. Our bodies are designed to respond to stress. We get a bruise on our arm from, running into something, it goes and heals. Blood comes down there to help the damaged tissue. That's why it bruises, because we bruise the tissue. It comes down to help clear it. It's not a bad thing, bruising. It's a great thing. It's our body's natural response to something. It's not a bad thing. We don't have to get the bruising out of there. We say, great, thanks for coming, blood, to help fix the problem. And when you're ready to go, you'll go. It's all these things that we don't often see and don't often understand about the body naturally responding to stress. And so stress is normal and natural. What's happening in the environment these days, so just switching gears a little bit here. So everybody's different. Everybody responds differently is one of the most important points. The first point that was really important as well is that everybody rebalances things all the time. If you didn't get enough sleep, then your foods will need to be different. If you're not eating healthy, maybe you need to do some more exercise. If you're under stress, maybe you need to move or think differently. Or all these things are always rebalancing each other. There's not just one thing you should always do. And the last point is just about the bigger conversation in our environment and our lifestyle. We do have a lot more toxicity in our environment and lifestyle than we ever used to have. It's true. Are we evolving as a species to counteract that? Yeah. But does that take a long time? Yeah. It takes hundreds of years. Actually, in terms of epidemiology, shows that it's hundreds of years for a species or a race to actually change and adapt to the environment and lifestyle that's there, which is why some people from Northern Europe will be different to Australia, which will be different to Africa or different to Asia, and we'll all respond differently because we have different genes that over many, many millennia have responded very differently to the environments and climates that are there. If you take, someone from Australia, or take someone from like a cold part of London, for example, and dump them in the middle of Australia, they're not used to that much sun, then that's why the skin cancer rates are so high. If you take someone who's from Africa and dump them in the middle of the sun, they're like, that's cool, we're used to it, no dramas. I'm not going to end up in that same thing. The rates are ridiculously low. So it's understanding that all our genetic lineage is because we've adapted over time to our environments and lifestyle. Our ancestors have been through that space. And so the environment and lifestyle changes that are happening now are based off of a lot of the things that aren't so great. We talk a lot about GMO foods, talk about chemtrails and other toxins and pesticides and all those sorts of things in the environment. Generally speaking, are not good for anyone. However, people do adapt differently to those, and it's something that our tolerance is being built up over time, I guess, but it's something we're trying to avoid as much as we can. And it's something that we just need to understand, that to change the way that we think about it is really important in the meantime while we're trying to change it. Because if we live from that place of fear, again, in our minds, like, oh, I can't even go outside these days. I can't even, I just have to sit in my room, not even breathe because it's too dangerous because there's everything else that's around, which is true. There's a lot of people that think like that. Yeah. It's something that it actually will do a lot more harm than good to be in fear with your mind, because again, being in fear with your mind creates all the negative chemicals that causes your disease and ill health in the first place. So it's the perception of things. So if you can, I'd really encourage everybody, even if you are concerned about that thing, I'd encourage you to be concerned about it so that we can make a difference in humanity to change it. But at the same time, I'd encourage you to not be stressed about it and not live in fear and not count every single particle that's in the air and be way over the top with your foods. Really follow your foods and do what's healthy for you, but be realistic. Don't live in fear. Don't get too crazy or too obsessed with things because this is a human life that's always changing. And so find out what's right for you and find out what's good for you, but do that in moderation and really come from a space of saying, as humanity, we're working to change it. The chemicals in the air that are here aren't going to change in the next 2 minutes. They're not going to change the next 2 months. They're not going to change the next 2 years, actually, probably. In fact, probably a lot more than that. And so let's just go, okay, cool. We accept that. And we, again, come back to what we talked about at the start of the call with relationships. It's our expectations that often end up, causing all these states of emotions that are the things behind ill health. And so if we expect things from where we are here, then we often get disappointed or frustrated or intolerant or angry because we expected everyone to be the same as us, or we expected to have a beautiful, clean environment. We expected that the government shouldn't allow this, and we expected all this, and we blame everyone and point everyone over there. The opposite to expectations is acceptance. And if we can say, well, I know I expect this. I'd love to walk outside and have clean air and no smog and not have all this junk in my food and whatever. I'll say that's what I like to expect. But I accept it for what it is. And I'm in control of that. I actually get to choose. I'm going to go shopping at the farmer's market and choose the best fruits and foods that I can. I'm going to choose to be in climates that are healthier than not healthier. I'm going to choose to do the best I can, but it's unrealistic for me to expect the government to magically wave away everything that's going on tomorrow, which is what I expect. Let's accept where we're at and let's move to make a difference. But at the same time, I want to enjoy who I am. I want to enjoy my quality of life and not live in fear that something's going to kill me. I want to really understand that the power of what we believe and the power of our mind is extremely, extremely powerful and actually dictates a lot of our physiology and a lot of our chemistry that's in our body, which does cause us either the disease or health. So anyway, a lot of things to cover and a lot of depth and a lot of other things that go into that. So anyone who's listening, that there's a lot more points I'd love to cover, but we'd be here for a couple of days. Usually, how I can chat on, Jules, about these sorts of things. So that's probably
I love it.
a couple of things to consider anyway. But I'd really encourage everybody to be really empowered, to certainly stand up for what you believe in and make a difference and help create good change and positive change for humanity moving forward. But at the same time, just accept what we have and live your day and live your life without fear, because that's really the cause of a lot of the stress and a lot of the ill health that we have today. Is the fear and the judgment and things that exist is what's causing a lot of our issues. And we're only just starting to find out a lot more about that in science and starting to see a lot more of that. And our environment and our things do play a part. But the most important thing out of all of that, it's our perception of the environment that actually makes a difference. And so, again, if we're in a toxic house, we perceive it as a toxic house. We could go and choose to change our perception and see it as a house with some people that are there that really need help, that need to spend some time on themselves to learn about how they can do it. But that's their journey. And I'm going to choose to be happy amongst that situation and choose to make sure I only engage in positive thoughts, positive conversations and positive parts of the house and blah, blah, blah. Like I can choose that. We're not ever a victim or a slave to our circumstances. We're actually always, in control of that. So it's how we perceive things. And again, is it a reality there's toxins and things in the air? Of course it is. Is it something that we can choose to live in fear about that? Is this going to kill me? When's it going to kill me? How much have I got in my system? Oh, I can do all that. Or we choose to say, it's there. It's not going to change for a little while. We're working on changing it, so there's no point in being in fear about it. Like, in the meantime, I'm actually going to choose to perceive this is a really healthy environment. Like, I love it. My body's got this covered. No problems at all. My body's built to defend all this sort of stuff. My body's built to attack all these viruses and infections and stuff all the time, which it is naturally built to defend all that sort of stuff. So, you know what? I'm actually putting my faith and trust in my body right now because I'm following my PH360. I understand who I am. I'm going to look after this, and I'm going to go out there. I'm going to have a really awesome time in my life while I'm here. I'm not going to live in fear. I'm actually just going to perceive everything to be really great, and we're going to change the long-term stuff. But in the short term, I'm just going to really enjoy what's here. And I love this beautiful place I'm living in. I love this beautiful body I'm living in. And I love this beautiful mind that I get to choose what I think about all the time. So,
yeah, it's just about like where we're focused and what we're going to choose to face. Like what we're creating is a world that is, that's beautiful, and these other things. And so I really get that, Matt. And wow, just focusing on what is, wrong makes more wrong, basically. You really ground that in over the last couple of years. So I really get it. Like, it's like, oh my God, it's magic. What happened? All of a sudden that's not bothering me anymore. So I really, really get it. And I've had the firsthand experience of that. So thank you. Yeah. And thank you so much for being here. And wow, it was really fantastic to just have you here. And we should do this more often. Like, have you come on and we could just share with everybody. What do you think about maybe doing that, a little ways down the road, but sooner than later?
Well, I think, I know, I guess let's ask everybody else who's on the call about that. I love sharing like the insights and the wisdom and the knowledge that's shared with me. I love being able to pass that on and share that with whoever wants to listen to that. So if people are interested, then maybe you can write a comment in the chat box and say, yeah, we'd love to have this. Maybe we could do it as a monthly call or something like that if people are interested, or if people find it boring and not interesting, then maybe we won't. So
well, and you guys be sure and add into the chat box what you would love to, like, what kinds of things would you love for Matt to share with us, and what would you like to know about PH360, about epigenetics? It can be about anything, basically, because our mission to be here is to make a difference for you. I mean, that's why we're here, and so the more we can do that, the better we feel.
for sure.
Right?
Well, maybe Jules, we can see, or maybe whoever's on this call listening live or replay, maybe if you're interested, we could create something on a Facebook post, Jules, and people can comment there if they want to do it. Because I know, like, the unfortunate thing about these calls is that I'd love to get, we've got tens of thousands of members that are here, and unfortunately, a lot of people that might not read their email or might not get a chance to get on here live or even watch the replay because life's busy, that may not even be aware. So if we comment on this, they might not even know about it or see it. So maybe if we did a Facebook post, if you guys are all on Facebook, and if you're not, please join the Facebook group. It's just an incredible community of support that's there. So maybe we can do a post where we can even post a replay of this and say, hey, whoever's interested in chatting about life and health and happiness with Matt each month or something like that, let us know here in comments. And maybe if we get, I don't know, over 100 comments or something like that, then we can do it. And if no one is interested, then we won't.
Well, we do have a way, because you will be contributing in the year-long health transformation that will be starting in September, in late September. And Matt will be definitely in that, in the year-long health transformation program. And we'll talk more about that tomorrow on the call. And you'll also get something in an email about it. So you'll get to hear more about that too, if you're interested. So that'll be fun.
Very cool.
All right, Matt, it was awesome to have you. Thank you so much. And what would be really fun is if we unmute everybody. So before we do that, you guys, there are people from all over the world that you are connected with right this very moment. People who are looking at their health, people who are increasing the amount of love in their life, that people who are making a difference in the planet, people who are leading lives and all over the world right now that took the time out of their day to be here with all of us. And so that would be kind of fun, right? To unmute and to just have everybody say a big yay before we sign off.
Sounds great, Jules. Let's do it. Thanks, Jules, and thanks everybody for being here.
Thanks so much, Matt. you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Everybody.
Hi, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.